In the beginning, there was a garden unlike anything our world has ever known. Eden, a masterpiece of divine creation where every blade of grass sparkled with morning dew and every flower bloomed in perfect harmony. The air was filled with fragrances so pure that each breath felt like drinking from a fountain of life itself. Picture streams of crystal-clear water threading through emerald meadows, their gentle murmur creating a symphony with the rustling leaves above. Trees laden with fruits of every kind stretched their branches toward a sky so blue it seemed to pulse with life. The light here was different, softer, yet more vibrant, casting no harsh shadows but instead bathing everything in a warm golden glow. Animals roamed freely through this paradise, their movements graceful and purposeful. Lions walked alongside lambs, eagles soared peacefully above grazing deer, and creatures we no longer know padded silently through the underbrush. There was no fear here, no hint of the violence that would later tear the world apart. At the heart of Eden stood the tree of life, its leaves shimmering with an otherworldly light, and nearby, casting a subtle shadow, grew another tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Its presence was both beautiful and forbidding, a testament to the choice that would soon change everything. This was Eden, not just a garden, but a realm of perfect peace, where the boundary between heaven and earth blurred, and where mankind's greatest story was about to begin. In this perfect realm, two beings walked in unimaginable intimacy with their Creator. Adam, formed from the dust of the earth but breathed into with divine life, and Eve, crafted from Adam's own rib. A union so profound it would define all future relationships. Their existence was unlike anything we can comprehend. Each morning brought new discoveries as they explored their vast domain. They could understand the whispered songs of birds and the gentle conversations of trees swaying in the breeze. When a lion roared, they heard not threat but joy. When an eagle soared, they sensed its pure delight in flight. Their minds were clear, unmarred by doubt or fear. Time held no tyranny over them. They knew neither aging nor weariness. Their conversations with God were as natural as breathing, His voice as clear as the running streams. In the cool of the evening, they would walk together, three figures moving through the garden's golden light, sharing thoughts deeper than our modern minds can fathom. But even in this perfection, something stirred. The tree of knowledge stood as a constant reminder of their freedom to choose. And sometimes, when Eve passed near it, she felt a curious sensation. Not quite desire, not quite fear, but something in between. A whisper of possibility that would soon change everything. They were naked and unashamed, but shadows were gathering at the edges of paradise, waiting for their moment to enter. In the heart of Eden lay a single rule, deceptive in its simplicity, yet profound in its implications. You may eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. These words hung in the air like distant thunder on a clear day, not threatening, but pregnant with possibility. The rule wasn't a cage, but a door, a chance to demonstrate love through choice. When God spoke it, His voice carried no threat, only a father's careful warning. Adam and Eve's obedience flowed naturally from their deep connection with their Creator, like breathing or the beating of their hearts. Their conversations with God were unlike anything we can imagine. They spoke of mysteries we've long forgotten, of truths too deep for fallen minds to grasp. God showed them the secrets of His garden, how each flower opened, how each creature lived in harmony with others. They learned not through struggle, but through direct revelation, their minds unmarred by doubt or confusion. But beneath this perfect surface, unseen currents were stirring. The serpent watched from shadowy branches, its ancient eyes gleaming with calculation. The tree of knowledge stood silent, its fruit growing ever more tempting. And in the quiet moments between God's visits, questions began to form in Eve's mind. Tiny seeds of doubt that would soon grow into something devastating. Paradise trembled on the edge of a choice that would reshape existence itself. The serpent chose its moment with ancient cunning. On that fateful day, Eve walked alone near the forbidden tree, her bare feet silent on the soft grass. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with destiny, as the creature's voice broke the garden's peace. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? Its words dripped like honey, sweet yet somehow unsettling. The creature was unlike any other in Eden. Its eyes held a gleam of intelligence that both attracted and unsettled. As it coiled on a branch at eye level, its scales caught the light in hypnotic patterns, drawing Eve closer with each subtle movement. The conversation that followed was the first philosophical debate in history, a masterpiece of manipulation. With each exchange, the serpent wove its web of doubt more tightly. "You will not certainly die," it whispered, its voice rich with false compassion. "God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve found herself drawn into a dance of words and ideas she had never considered before. The fruit suddenly appeared different, more vibrant, more enticing. Its skin seemed to glow with promised wisdom, and its scent carried whispers of hidden knowledge. As she stood there, transfixed, the boundary between obedience and rebellion began to blur. The fate of humanity hung suspended in that moment, balanced on the edge of a decision that would echo through eternity. With trembling fingers, Eve reached for the fruit. Time itself seemed to slow as her hand crossed that final, fatal distance. The first bite shattered the perfect silence of Eden like breaking glass. The fruit's juice was sweeter than anything she had ever tasted. But beneath that sweetness lay a bitter undertone that would soon spread throughout creation. Moments later, Adam joined her. Without hesitation, perhaps out of love, perhaps out of curiosity, he too took the fruit she offered. As they swallowed those fateful mouthfuls, a profound change rippled through their beings. Their eyes opened, but not to the wisdom they had hoped for. Instead, they saw their own nakedness with horrifying clarity. The afternoon light, once gentle and welcoming, now seemed harsh and exposing. They frantically wove fig leaves together, their fingers clumsy with newfound shame. But worse was yet to come. In the growing shadows, they heard a familiar sound, the footsteps of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. For the first time, that beloved sound filled them with terror. They ran, crashing through the undergrowth like frightened animals, seeking shelter among the trees. Their hearts pounded with a fear they had never known before, their breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. "Adam, where are you?" God's voice rang through the garden, not in anger but in sorrow, calling to children he knew were already lost. The confrontation that followed shattered the harmony of Eden forever. When God's voice called them out from hiding, Adam and Eve emerged trembling, their hastily made coverings a pitiful shield against divine scrutiny. The blame game that followed revealed how deeply sin had already corrupted their hearts. Adam pointed to Eve, Eve to the serpent, neither willing to bear the weight of their own choice. As God pronounced judgment, the very fabric of creation seemed to groan. The ground beneath their feet, once fertile and giving, hardened as the curse fell upon it. The animals, sensing the change, began to draw away from their former companions. A cold wind, the first they had ever felt, swept through the garden, making them shiver in their inadequate coverings. Yet even in this darkest moment, mercy gleamed like a distant star. God himself clothed them with animal skins, the first death in a world that had never known ending. More precious still was the promise. One day, a descendant of Eve would crush the serpent's head, though at great cost to himself. As Adam and Eve were led toward Eden's gates, they looked back one last time. Cherubim with flaming swords now guarded the tree of life, their weapons casting dancing shadows on the garden walls. Paradise was lost, and before them stretched a world of thorns and thistles, of sweat and pain, of birth and death. They stepped through the gates into exile, and behind them, Eden faded like a dream at dawn. Outside Eden's gates, the first family's joy at the birth of Cain pierced through their exile's gloom. Eve cradled her firstborn, hope blazing in her eyes. "With the Lord's help, I have brought forth a man," she whispered, perhaps dreaming this might be the promised one who would undo their fatal mistake. As the brothers grew, their differences emerged like shadows at sunset. Cain bent to the earth, forcing life from the cursed soil with calloused hands and bitter sweat. Abel wandered the wild places with his flocks, his gentle spirit echoing the paradise his parents had lost. Their paths diverged, yet intertwined, like two streams flowing from a broken garden. Then came the day of offering. Abel's sacrifice rose in sweet-smelling smoke, while Cain's fruits lay untouched, his offering as cold as his heart. God's favor fell like sunlight on Abel's gift, leaving Cain's in shadow. In that moment, something dark stirred in Cain's soul, a serpent's whisper echoing through generations. "Let's go out to the field," Cain said to Abel one morning, his voice honey-sweet with hidden venom. The younger brother followed trustingly, unaware that each step took him closer to becoming humanity's first victim. The field waited in silence, ready to drink the blood that would cry out from the ground. The world held its breath, hovering on the edge of its first murder. Two bloodlines flowed from Eden's gates, as distinct as light and shadow. Cain, marked by God and haunted by his brother's blood, fled eastward into the land of Nod. There, driven by guilt and defiance, he built the first city. Walls of stone rising like a challenge to heaven, as if to prove he needed no garden paradise. Meanwhile, Adam and Eve's grief over Abel found solace in another son, Seth, whose name whispered of God's appointment. While Cain's line forged ahead with restless ambition, Seth's descendants walked a quieter path, their hearts turned toward heaven like flowers seeking the sun. Through the centuries, these lines carved different destinies. Cain's progeny built ever larger cities, their towers scraping the sky. They filled the air with music from instruments of their own making, shaped metal into tools and weapons, their achievements growing as impressive as their pride. Lamech, Cain's descendant, boasted of 77-fold vengeance, his words echoing the escalating violence of their world. But Seth's line preserved a different inheritance. Enoch walked so closely with God that he simply vanished from the earth, taken by the one he had served. Methuselah's years stretched longer than any human before or since, each decade adding to the wisdom he passed down. Through them flowed the whispered promise of redemption, a hope kept alive in an increasingly dark world. Yet as these lines began to mingle, a shadow loomed over humanity's future, darker than any since the garden's gates had closed. As generations multiplied, human ingenuity bloomed like a deadly flower. Tubal-Cain hammered the first bronze and iron, his forge's glow reflecting in eyes that held both wonder and warfare. The ring of his anvil echoed through history, each strike birthing tools that could either nurture or destroy. Jubal's fingers drew music from the first harp and flute, crafting melodies that could stir souls to worship or to war. In city squares, his descendants played songs that made people forget their exile from Eden, their tunes drowning out the memory of God's voice in the garden. Cities rose from dusty plains, their walls growing ever higher, as if trying to reach the heaven humanity had lost. Markets buzzed with trade, streets filled with the sound of 1,000 tongues. Knowledge passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, each achievement building on the last, like a tower reaching for the stars. But with each advance came a price. The same hands that shaped metal into plowshares bent it into swords. The walls that kept danger out also shut God's truth away. As human lifespans stretched across centuries, so too did the capacity for both wisdom and wickedness. In the shadows of these growing cities, the forbidden knowledge of the garden fruit bore its bitter harvest. Civilization flourished, while souls withered, and the heart of humanity drifted further from its creator with each passing year. In those days, giants walked the earth. The Nephilim, mighty ones, heroes of old, men of renown, strode through the ancient world like living legends. Their shadows fell long across the land, their deeds whispered around evening fires with equal parts awe and terror. Their origins lay in the forbidden union between the sons of God and daughters of men. As these beings took wives from among mortal women, their offspring grew into warriors whose fame echoed through generations. Their strength seemed boundless, their ambitions even more so. They built monuments that dwarfed ordinary men's efforts, led armies that shook the earth with their passing. In their mighty halls, these giants held court, dispensing what they called justice, but what often served their own desires. Their laughter boomed like thunder through city streets. Their anger struck like lightning. Ordinary humans scurried in their presence, alternatively seeking their favor and fleeing their wrath. Under their influence, society transformed. Knowledge once forbidden became commonplace. Practices that would have shocked earlier generations grew accepted, then celebrated. Their courts became centers of power and corruption, where the strong preyed upon the weak, and justice was measured by might alone. Yet even these mighty ones cast fearful glances at the gathering storm clouds, for in their hearts they knew their power was borrowed, and judgment was coming. The corruption spread like a creeping shadow across the land. In marketplaces, where merchants once traded honestly, deceit became an art form. In courts where justice once prevailed, gold now spoke louder than truth. The strong devoured the weak, while those in power turned blind eyes to suffering. Their hearts hardened by luxury and excess. Violence stalked the streets openly now. Lamech's boast of 77-fold vengeance became a common creed. Blood feuds multiplied like thorns in an untended garden. Men killed for slighter and slighter offenses, pride swelling like a festering wound in humanity's soul. Marriage, once sacred, became a mockery. Men took wives as they pleased, discarding them like worn sandals. The sanctity of family crumbled like the walls of abandoned temples. Children grew up watching their parents pursue pleasure at any cost, learning to worship power rather than virtue. God looked down upon the world he had made and saw that every inclination of the human heart was only evil all the time. The corruption ran deeper than mere actions. It had infected the very wellspring of human thought and desire. Each generation's wickedness built upon the last, like layers of filth in a poisoned well. Yet in this darkness, one man's heart remained uncorrupted. Noah walked with God, his footsteps leaving a clean path through the moral decay of his time. In the halls of heaven, divine sorrow deepened like gathering storm clouds. God's heart was filled with pain as he watched his creation spiral into darkness. The world he had crafted with love had become a theater of violence, its beauty twisted into corruption. The time for judgment had come. The divine decision fell like a thunderbolt. I will wipe mankind from the face of the earth. The words echoed through creation, causing angels to bow their heads in solemn acknowledgement. Yet even in this moment of judgment, mercy stirred, for Noah had found favor in the eyes of the Lord. In the quiet of dawn, as humanity continued its headlong rush into evil, God spoke to Noah. His voice cut through the moral darkness like a shaft of pure light. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood. The command came with precise instructions, each detail a testament to divine planning. This would be no mere boat, but a vessel of salvation, carrying the seeds of a new world through the waters of judgment. Noah stood silent, absorbing the weight of what he had heard. Around him, life continued as usual. Markets hummed with activity, children played in dusty streets, the mighty Nephilim strode through their domains. None knew that their time was measured now, counting down to a deluge that would reshape the world. The morning Noah received God's command dawned like any other. But it would end with the weight of the world resting on one man's shoulders. As divine words filled his mind, Noah's hands began to tremble, not from fear, but from the overwhelming magnitude of what was being asked of him. Standing in his fields, Noah faced his family. His wife, whose eyes had already seen the burden in his face, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Their wives, young women who had married into what seemed a respectable family, not yet knowing they would become mothers of a new world. God has spoken, Noah began, his voice steady despite the storm raging in his heart. The instructions were precise, each measurement a sacred trust, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high, dimensions that would echo through time as a testament to divine precision. The ark would be their salvation, but first it would be their trial. As Noah shared God's warning of the coming flood, disbelief flickered across his sons' faces. Rain? A flood covering the mountains? In their world, where dew and mist watered the earth, such things were beyond imagination. Yet there was something in their father's eyes, a certainty that transcended human doubt, that made them nod in solemn agreement. The family gathered in prayer, unknowingly forming the last faithful circle in a dying world. The first tree fell with a thunderous crash that seemed to announce to the world construction had begun. Noah's hands, more accustomed to tending crops, now gripped unfamiliar tools with determined purpose. His sons worked beside him, their backs bent under massive cypress logs, their minds still grappling with the enormity of their task. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. The ark took shape slowly, each plank a testimony to unwavering faith. Local children gathered to watch, their laughter turning to whispers as the massive structure rose against the horizon. Noah, the boat builder, they called him, their mockery masking growing unease. The wealthy and powerful came to observe as well. Some offered to buy portions of the ark as storage space, their gold glinting as temptingly as the serpent's scales in Eden. Others threatened to destroy this monument to madness. Noah's response never wavered. It's not for sale, it's for salvation. In the evenings, Noah's wife tended to his blistered hands, her gentle touch conveying both support and shared burden. Their daughters-in-law learned to seal joints with pitch, their fine clothes stained black with the work of survival. The sons' muscles grew hard as iron as they hauled endless loads of timber. Through it all, Noah's voice rang out daily, preaching repentance to a world that laughed at the very concept of rain. Each hammer blow was both construction and sermon, each sealed seam an invitation to salvation. As the ark grew taller, so did the opposition. The city elders gathered in secret councils, debating whether to stop this madness that was drawing unwanted attention to their region. Merchants complained that Noah's constant warnings of doom were bad for business. Former friends crossed the street to avoid his earnest pleas for repentance. The Nephilim sent representatives, their towering forms casting long shadows across the construction site. "Old man," they sneered, "cease this foolishness or face our wrath." But Noah stood his ground, seeming to grow taller in his conviction. "It is not I you should fear," he replied, his voice carrying the weight of divine authority. Even Noah's extended family turned against him. Cousins who once shared his table now spread vicious rumors. "He's lost his mind," they whispered in marketplaces. "His sons are throwing away their futures on an old man's delusion." These words cut deeper than any physical threat. Yet the cruelest attacks came in the form of mockery. Every morning, crowds gathered to laugh at the family's labor. "Noah, where's your rain?" they would call. "Noah, seen any good floods lately?" Each taunt was met with the steady rhythm of hammering, each jeer answered with another beam set in place. In the quiet of night, Noah's family huddled together, drawing strength from each other and from their shared faith in the unseen. They were building more than a boat. They were constructing a testament to unwavering belief. Then it began. First came the animals, marching in pairs as if pulled by an invisible hand. The mockers fell silent as they watched lions walk peacefully beside lambs, eagles soar in to perch near doves, creatures great and small approaching the ark in perfect order. Even the most hardened skeptics felt a chill run down their spines at this unnatural procession. For 7 days, Noah's family worked tirelessly, guiding each pair to their designated spaces. The interior of the ark, once eerily empty, now hummed with life. The air grew thick with animal sounds and scents, while the massive structure creaked and settled under its new burden. On the 7th day, God spoke again. "Enter the ark." The family gathered their final provisions as dark clouds began to gather overhead. Some in the watching crowd shifted uneasily. They had never seen such darkness before. A few stepped forward, their mocking smiles fading, but it was too late. The massive door, too heavy for human hands to move, began to swing shut of its own accord. The sound of its closing echoed like final judgment. Inside, Noah's family huddled together in the growing darkness, listening to the first unfamiliar pattering sounds on the roof. Outside, the crowd's laughter turned nervous, then died altogether, as the first heavy drops of rain, something none of them had ever seen, began to fall. The first thunderclap shook the ark to its foundations. Then the heavens opened with a fury never before witnessed by human eyes. Rain fell not in drops but in sheets, pounding against the ark's roof like an army of hammers. The world outside dissolved into a gray wall of water. Through the ark's single window, Noah's family watched in horrified awe as the waters rose with terrifying speed. First ankles, then knees, then waists. The mockers who had gathered daily to jeer now scrambled for higher ground, their laughter turned to desperate cries. Some hammered on the ark's sealed door, their pleas drowned by the roaring deluge. The mighty Nephilim, for all their strength, found themselves powerless against the rising flood. Their great cities, built in pride and defiance, crumbled like sandcastles before the relentless waters. The highest towers, the strongest walls, all vanished beneath the churning waves. Inside the ark, the family clung to each other as their vessel was lifted from its cradle of timber. The massive structure groaned and creaked, tossed by waves that grew larger with each passing hour. They could only imagine the scene outside as the waters swallowed mountains, erased valleys, and reshaped the very face of the earth. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain continued without pause. The world they had known vanished beneath a gray expanse of endless water. Inside the ark, survival became a relentless routine. Dawn to dusk blurred in the dim light filtering through the single window as 8 souls tended to a floating zoo. The constant rolling of waves made every step treacherous, every task a challenge. Shem, Ham, and Japheth worked in shifts, navigating narrow walkways between animal pens. Their wives formed a tireless brigade, passing feed and fresh water along the 3 decks. The air hung heavy with animal sounds and scents, punctuated by the eternal drumming of rain above. Noah's wife emerged as the heart of their floating community. Her quiet strength held them together through moments of despair. Her wisdom solved countless crises. When food stores showed signs of molding, she discovered new preservation methods. When conflicts arose in their confined space, her gentle words restored peace. The darkest hours came at night, when the storm's fury peaked. The ark would pitch violently, sending loose items crashing through the darkness. Animals cried out in fear, their panic threatening to spread through the entire vessel. During these moments, the family gathered to pray, their voices rising above the chaos like a lifeline to heaven. Yet there were moments of unexpected beauty. New bonds formed between humans and animals. They witnessed births among their charges, tiny sparks of hope in their wooden world. Each sunrise, though barely visible through the window, reminded them of God's promise. After 150 days, the endless rocking suddenly changed. The ark shuddered, then stopped with a mighty groan. Through the window, Noah glimpsed the peaks of Ararat, their snow-capped summits rising like islands in an endless sea. The family gathered, hearts pounding. Could this be the beginning of the end? Days crept by with agonizing slowness. Noah released a raven, watching it wheel away into the gray distance. The bird didn't return, but neither did it bring any sign of hope. Then came the dove, first returning empty-beaked, then with an olive leaf that set their hearts racing. When the dove finally failed to return, tears of joy streamed down weather-worn faces. Noah removed the ark's covering, revealing a world transformed. Where familiar valleys and plains had once stretched, strange new landscapes emerged from the receding waters. The earth they knew had been erased, rewritten by the flood's fury. But still they waited, patience stretched thin as dried leather. God's command had sealed them in, only His word could release them. The animals grew restless, sensing the proximity of solid ground. Their cries echoed through the ark with renewed urgency. Finally, after more than a year inside their wooden refuge, the divine command came. Come out of the ark. 8 pairs of hands trembled as they prepared to step into a world reborn. The first step onto solid ground felt like stepping into a dream. The soil was still damp beneath their feet, but it bore the promise of new life. Noah's first act was to build an altar, his weathered hands stacking stones while tears streamed down his face. The smoke from his sacrifice rose straight to heaven, a pillar of gratitude in the pristine air. Then God spoke, His words carrying a promise that would echo through all generations. Never again will I curse the ground because of humans. As if to seal this divine covenant, something unprecedented appeared in the eastern sky. An arch of brilliant colors, each hue more vibrant than any they had ever seen. This rainbow, the first in human history, stretched across the heavens like a divine signature. God's voice continued, explaining that this beautiful phenomenon would serve as an eternal reminder of His promise. Every future storm would carry this symbol of hope. But with this promise came responsibility. Be fruitful and multiply, God commanded, echoing His original blessing to Adam and Eve. This time, though, the words carried new weight. Noah's family now bore the duty of not just populating the earth, but of teaching future generations the lessons learned from humanity's near extinction. As animals dispersed into the new world, Noah's family stood together, their shadows long in the setting sun. Behind them lay the ark, a testament to unwavering faith. Before them stretched a world renewed, waiting to be reshaped by hands that had learned both God's justice and His mercy. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through time. If these ancient stories have touched your heart or sparked your curiosity, please share your thoughts in the comments below. What moments resonated with you most? What lessons do you think we can learn from Noah's unwavering faith? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fascinating historical narratives and spiritual insights. Your support helps us continue creating content that explores these timeless stories in depth. Share this video with friends and family who might find meaning in these ancient tales. If you enjoyed this exploration of the pre-flood world, please hit the like button below. Every like helps others discover these powerful stories of faith, courage, and divine providence. Looking forward to hearing your perspectives in the comment section below.